Welcome to the Mainstream Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Merle.
And I'm Larry.
We got a good show for you today. We're actually combining two stories, I guess you want to call it.
Yep. One of them is on the Witch of Yazoo, Mississippi.
Which is not, well, I mean, it's, 3 hours from us?
3 hour drive from where we live, yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be...
South. 3 hours south of where we are.
Right. Yeah, we're in North Mississippi.
Right.
But from what I could tell, it's a pretty interesting little story.
Oh, yeah.
And our next one after that, we're going to dive into the Bell Witch of Adams, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Couple witches here. Yep.
All right, so we're just going to go ahead and jump in. The Witch of Yazoo. We got, so in Yazoo City's Greenwood Cemetery, this is in Yazoo, Mississippi, there's a story etched into one of the tombstones. It's the story of the Witch of Yazoo. A woman who lived on the outskirts of town and came to an untimely death. Then 20 years later, she rose from the grave and burned the entire town to the ground.
A lot of people have mixed feelings about that. Some say it's true. Some of them say that, it was just coincidence. But when it happened, it actually happened on the date that she said it would happen.
Right. Yeah, the little backstory, the legend goes, on May 25th, 1884, the Yazoo City Police were investigating the disappearance of several fishermen. Their investigation led them to a cabin in the swamp just outside of town. While inspecting the shed of the property, police found several bones. The woman, now thought to be a witch, immediately fled her cabin and ran into the swamp. There she met her fate, sinking into a patch of quicksand and drowning. However, before her head passed under the sand, she vowed that she would return in 20 years to burn the entire town to the ground. So, I mean, right there, goes back to, she said, when she said she was going to come back and do it. So 20 years later, on the anniversary of her death, a fire really did break out in Yazoo City, just as she said it would. The fire originated in a part of town occupied by the Western Union and the Post Telegraph companies, and quickly spread to the telephone exchange, which completely cut them off from the outside world. So they couldn't get any calls for help to come in. And due to the unseasonably high winds, the fire quickly spread. So, I mean, by the time they were able to get it extinguished, over 200 homes and most of the businesses in the town of Yazoo were destroyed. So, I mean, basically, as far as damages go, like in today's money, they said it was probably nearly worth $50 million.
No, that was actually $2 million their time, $50 million our time.
So I mean, $2 million.
That's pretty much the whole town.
1904, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of continues now. Was there really a witch, a Yazoo?
Well, here's one of the weird things. There's a grave there, and it's supposed to mark where, since her body went in quicksand, they couldn't get her out.
Right.
So they put a grave, in a cemetery for her, and they put chains around it. Now, here's one of the weird, creepy things. The chains are always brand new because they have to keep replacing these chains because the chains are always broken and they're laying down on the grave instead of They're like in steel eyelets, and they ran through it like a barrier.
Right.
Well, the chains are always broken and laying down, and we're talking huge log chains that are like snapped.
Dang. And it's not like they're cut or anything like that.
No,
They're just completely, or they're just broken.
Yeah, they're broke. Yeah, and that's goes with part of the legend that this woman is still haunting Yazoo, Mississippi. And I'm pretty sure if you went down there and you asked some of the locals about it, you would probably get mixed reviews, on if they believe it or not.
But yeah, I mean, we're hoping to take a trip down there.
Oh yeah, yeah, we're definitely gonna do that.
And they give tours at the cemetery.
Yep, they give tours. They will pretty much tell you the same thing we're saying. They might add a little more to it. We don't know.
Because we haven't got to take the tour yet.
Right. And we are also going to see about getting in touch with the city so we could probably do an investigation one day as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. So.
And we might have maybe a, kind of a, I want to say not, maybe a little easier to get in since you guys do have your hunting club's got a cabin down in Yazoo.
We actually have a hunting club down in Yazoo. Well, it's on the outside of Yazoo. It's like a 20-minute drive from there, so it'd be easy for us. So who knows? But and when I was doing research, I couldn't find the name of this quote unquote woman. So I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean there's not a whole lot on her.
No, there's not.
There's the reason why a lot of people wonder if there's really a witch because there was, back in 1884, you didn't have a whole lot of records being kept. I mean,
no, you didn't. But if something major happened, they did keep a record in the court about it.
Right.
And there's hardly nothing.
Right. I mean, there was no record of any fishermen,
Nope.
And no record of a woman drowning in quicksand.
Nope.
At least on May 25th. See, I'm not familiar with the Yazoo area, so I don't know what the swamps are like out there.
Oh, they pretty gnarly. Yazoo, if you're from the Mississippi, there's a hunting refuge called Panther Swamp. And Panther Swamp literally has alligators in that area. I can remember probably a couple of weeks ago we went down after the huge rain that we had.
Right.
And everything flooded up. We went down to check on our camp to make sure it wasn't flooded out. And we were driving the levees, and I mean we could see alligators 10 feet long, if not longer, just sitting on the side of the roadside. And these are areas that I hunt, and I didn't realize they were in there. So I mean, it's possible that this woman got in some kind of mud or something.
Yeah.
And one reason they couldn't find her is because alligator probably got her. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, rotting flesh out there, it's going to attract a lot of animals.
Yeah, this story kind of reminds me of another story I heard. It's been several years ago. It was like in Ireland or something like that. I think that's just the building popping. But there was this guy. There was two neighbors, and one of them they lived across the swamp from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a peat moss swamp. Well, one guy, like, he always wore, like, a... I'm trying to remember. It was some kind of hat.
Okay.
Like, he never took it off. Well, his neighbor kept asking about it, you know, and he never would tell him why he never took off the hat. Well, his neighbor snuck into his house and stole his hat. Well, the next day he comes into town, and he's wearing the same hat. So he's like, well, he must have, you know, a few hats.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes in and steals all his hats. Goes in his house at night, steals all these hats, and goes home. Well, guy wakes up and is apparently, you know, ticked off. Well, he goes, instead of going around the swamp, he cuts through the swamp and basically drowned. Well, I couldn't find him, and he so the sheriff's department or whatever they are, the police, they, when they're interviewing the guy, they decide that they're gonna all go looking for him. Well, they start going through the swamp. And they found just the top of his head. And they found the cap.
Right.
Well, when they take the cap off the top of the swamp, they see just the top of his head sinking down.
Ooh.
So the judge made that neighbor that stole his hats, because he said, you know, man, this is my fault, you know, because I stole his hats, you know. He must have been so aggravated, instead of going around, he came through it. So the judge said that for his punishment, he had to wear that hat for the rest of his life. Every day for the rest of his life. I mean, I don't know if it's a true story, but it's just the sinking thing, you know. I just had to tell you. It was a little off story. If not, I mean, like we said, there's not a whole lot on this woman. But, I mean, the town did burn down. Well,
it did.
Most of it did burn down. But we don't know if it's because of a witch or if it's just a coincidence. Because, like we said, other than the grave with the headstone,
yeah,
you know, and these legends, there's no...
Oh, there's actually no headstone.
It's just the grave?
It's a marker. Yeah, it's a marker. And it's
from
concrete, like a concrete slab with a marker put on it. And then around that is the chain.
So the pictures that I've seen, the headstone that we see in the pictures is not her headstone.
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. I guess I'm off on that, but hey, I'm off on a lot of stuff.
Well, unless they just put one up, because the last I saw of it was only a flat, like a flat name marker.
Right.
That it's concrete, and then the concrete slab and the chain around it. So could be something new.
Yeah. Because
of the notoriety of all this. But they have put up. I don't know. But Yazoo's also it's steeped in a lot of Civil War stuff as well. So
that reminds me, when we leave or get done with our episode, we need to just drive down to that cemetery.
Okay.
Probably a 10-minute drive or so. Check out that gravestone.
Yep.
That I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
That'll be hopefully another episode coming up.
Hope it's an investigation coming up. Can't wait.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you guys have any, speaking of investigations, if you guys have any, what do you want to say, troubles with the paranormal and
questionable situations.
Yeah.
That'd be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I guess you'd call it questionable.
We are here. to help answer those questions if possible.
Yep. And of course, you just send us a private message on Facebook. Nobody's going to see it but us.
That's right.
Or send us a email at mainstreamparanormalpodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, really, that's all we really have on.
Yeah,
the Witch of Yazoo.
there's not much on this at all.
We just wanted to start off with that because it's not really local to us, but it's in our own home state. So that's why we decided to go ahead and start with Witch of Yazoo.
Yeah, just a small one to kind of kick off the Witch Day or the Witch Cast. Yeah, that's a good word for it. The Witch Cast.
Okay, we're had to take a little pause there for a second to check on some information.
Yep, we had to. We here at Mainstream want to make sure we get the right facts out, and if we're wrong, we want to correct it before we just leave it be. So
we could go back. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we could go back and edit it out. But it's easier just to say, "Hey, we went back and looked, and
we verified." And I was wrong. It's not log chains. It's actually kind of if you can imagine like a iron paper clip,
right,
interlocked with another paper clip. That's what that chain looks like.
Right. It's pretty thick.
Yeah.
It's not as thick as log chains, but from all of our research we've done,
Mm-hmm.
spirits and witches and stuff like that. This is an iron chain.
Right.
From us being in the paranormal field, spirits and stuff have an issue with iron.
Mm-hmm. Kind of poor containment.
Right.
So
I figured that may be why they use an iron chain around this grave, because it's not high enough to keep people out of the grave.
Right.
But it's meant to keep a spirit in.
Yeah, but it's not working.
No, literally, from what we just looked at, that chain was broke on the ground.
Several links, several places. And they do say they replace it quite a bit.
Right.
And it still ends up in the same configuration. Off the, what would you say it was? Supports?
Yeah.
Off the supports on the ground, broke. Yeah. And even the slab is cracked right down the center because they said when they put it there.
Yeah.
What was it, the same day?
Yeah, the same day.
Same day they put it on, the slab literally cracked itself all the way down from one end to the other.
And this is a pretty new slab.
Yeah.
This was the date I seen. I was 1997.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's granite. That's not. And granite's not easy to, especially something like that. It's not easy to break. Those things are heavy.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what we need to do is we need to find out, get some information, and head down and do an investigation. That's what we need to do.
That's what we need to do on that.
And guys, let me make another notation here. I mentioned this a minute ago to Merle. We're here doing these witch podcasts for you, and I just happened to look over, and my buddy Merle is wearing a Harry Potter's platform 9 3/4 T-shirt.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it when I put it on. Us doing this.
There you go.
I just want to, just grab the T-shirt out of the closet. Because I thought it was supposed to be a pretty warm day, but in Mississippi, you go from 80 degrees one day and
34 at night.
Yeah, and it was 60 when I came out here.
Yeah, 5 more minutes it'll change again.
Yeah, I had the air conditioning running in the building all night to make sure it was nice in here.
Yeah,
I walked in, it was freezing. Man, it was cold.
I was telling him I walked in wearing a long sleeve Magellan fishing shirt, and he asked me if I was chilled, and I told him I slept with the windows open, ceiling fan going, And my fan on my nightstand blowing. Yeah, I got a little chilled. I haven't been able to shake it. So, but anyway, back to our podcast. We're sorry about just jumping subject like that, but
hey, it happens. We
hey, that's our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we may run off on a tangent, but we're going to come back to the information.
Yeah, we'll come back to the original subject. So.
And sometimes if we take a pause, it's either to look up something that
we need to get correction on, make sure we're telling you guys right. Normally we do research everything we talk about. And we researched this one. The thing is there's not a lot of research or information on Yazoo Witch. And I remembered the thing about the chains, and then I remember there was something that we could go back and refer to it, and that's what we did, because I want to make sure you guys get the right information. So I think that's going to end the Witch of Yazoo. So what we're probably fixing to do now is go to which other witch?
The Bell Witch.
There you go.
Now, there's quite a bit more on the Bell Witch. The Bell Witch has been around a lot longer.
Yeah,
and as far as the story goes.
The story, and there's also documentation and stuff on this.
And I mean, it was even documented by a former president.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which we'll get to, but kind of a little backstory. In the early 1800s, this man named John Bell. He moved his family from North Carolina to, call it the Red River Bottomland, Robertson County, Tennessee. It's right there in the Adams, Tennessee area. He purchased some land and a large house for his family. And over the next several years, he increased his land to, over 300 acres and cleared fields for planting, which will kind of come into what we're fixing to talk about.
He was made an elder of the Red River Baptist Church. They had 3 more children after they moved to Tennessee. Elizabeth, they called her Betsy, was born in 1806. Richard was the, I want to say, middle child. He was in 1811. And the youngest, Joel, in 1813. Let's see here. There's a weird story that that's been said that on one day in 1817, John Bell was inspecting his cornfield when he encountered a strange-looking animal sitting in the middle of a corn row. He said he was shocked by the appearance of the animal. He said that the animal had a body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. He even
makes you wonder how big the dog was. Was it a big dog with a little bitty head?
Kind of reminds you of a Chihuahua, don't it?
Yeah.
I mean, body of a dog looks. A Chihuahua kind of has a head of a rabbit, smaller head, pointy ears.
Yeah, except you got, a Chihuahua. You got a big old head, little bitty body.
Yeah. Bobblehead there.
Yeah.
He said he even took a shot at it several times, but the animal vanished. He said he didn't think about it, after that, and later that evening, he began hearing beating sounds on the outside of the walls of their house. Now, back in the 1800s, the houses were more like log homes, and they were plank boards instead of like what we have now.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Said the mysterious sounds continued. They increased in frequency and force. So I guess they got faster and beating harder.
A lot harder, yeah.
He said Bell and his sons often they'd hurry outside to try to catch whoever was beating on the walls, and got out there and there wasn't anybody out there.
Ding dong ditch, huh?
In the weeks that followed, the Bell children began waking up. They'd wake up scared, complaining that rats were gnawing at their bedposts. And after that, the children began complaining of having their bed covers, so I guess their blankets and stuff, pulled from them and their pillows tossed onto the floor. But there wasn't anybody there.
Yeah. I mean, with a lot of paranormal, I guess you would say poltergeist, because that's typical poltergeist activity right there.
Right.
Pulling the sheets, throwing stuff, noises. That's typical poltergeist.
Right.
So, they say as time went on, the Bells began hearing faint whispering voices, which were too weak to understand, but sounded like a feeble woman singing hymns, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
The encounters escalated, and the Bell's youngest daughter, Betsy, began experiencing brutal encounters with something invisible. It would pull her hair and slap her relentlessly, often leaving welts and handprints on her face. The disturbances, which John Bell told his family to keep secret, eventually escalated to a point that he decided to share his family trouble with his closest friend and neighbor, James Johnson. Let's talk about that real quick. Slapping the face, pulling hair. Again, that's poltergeist activity, leaving welts and stuff like that, which could be demonic.
Right.
Because of the voices. I'm gonna kill that fly that's flying around right now. The pulling hair, welts, and physical visible. What's the word I'm looking for? The physical and physical. Help me out. What's the word? Evidence of something happening. Yeah. So that right there could be poltergeist, or it could be demonic.
Right.
So,
yeah. But then it comes down to, a lot of investigators and researchers and stuff believe poltergeist is actually demonic. All poltergeist activity is actually demonic. All right. It says Johnston and his wife spent the night at the Bell house, or Bell home, or I guess, where they were subject to the same terrifying disturbances that the Bells had experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So the pulling sheets and all that kind of stuff. After having their bed covers removed and being slapped repeatedly, man, I'd lose my crap, Johnston sprang out of bed, exclaiming, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?" There was no response, but the remainder of the night was pretty peaceful. So
that right there kind of tells you it was demonic, because anytime you use
the Lord's name,
the Lord's name, you're going to get either a more forceful response, or it's going to stop.
Right.
So, let's see here. It says the entity's voice strengthened over time to the point that it was loud and unmistakable. It was seen hymns, quoted scripture, which is not uncommon, and carried an intelligent conversation, and once even quoted word for word 2 sermons that were preached at the same time on the same day, 13 miles apart.
No.
All right, I have a little problem with that right now, just in. 2 sermons on the same day, 13 miles apart. Back then, travel wasn't like it is now.
No.
Back in those days, it was horse and carriage. So just to go to town and back was
an all day.
It was. It was an all day thing. So who's going to go to 2 different places for church? 13 miles apart. You're not going to.
Right.
So I have a little bit of issue with what's said right there. But anyway, go ahead. That's just me.
So, word of this supernatural phenomenon soon spread outside the settlement, even in Nashville, where then Major General Andrew Jackson took a keen interest.
And we all know who Andrew Jackson is.
Yeah. So you got John Bell Jr., Drury Bell, and Jesse Bell, the eldest, the ones that were born before they moved here.
Exactly.
They had fought under General Jackson at the Battle of New Orleans. And in 1819, Jackson decided to visit the Bell farm to see what was going on, what all this stuff people were telling him about. Said Jackson's entourage consisted of several men, some well-groomed
horses, and a wagon.
Yeah, well-groomed horses. I was thinking of well-groomed men. But
kind of throws you.
yeah, it does. As they approached the Bell property, the wagon stopped suddenly. The horses couldn't pull it. I mean, it's not like the wheel was broke.
No. But that's kind of like any animal. If there's any kind of negative energy, it's like with a dog. All right, a dog knows what's right and what's wrong. He can sense it. It's like a dog just standing in front of a doorway, barking at nothing. And you're like, well, come on, boy, let's go. And he's just sitting there just growling, barking, just going crazy, and nothing there. He something's there, but you can't see it. I can't see it.
Right.
That dog can see it and sense it. So, horses are the same way. A horse can know if there's a rattlesnake on the ground before you even get to it because they start kind of jerking with you.
Right. They can feel the vibration and stuff in the ground, which we can't.
Exactly. So
But the issue with this was it wasn't the horse that stopped. The horse couldn't pull the wagon.
Right.
So something was physically holding the wagon there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't stuck in the mud. It didn't have a broken wheel.
Nope. It just got really heavy for a horse. Now, for a horse not to pull something, it's got to be like it's in the ground.
So, it said after several minutes of cursing and trying to coax the horses into pulling the wagon, Jackson proclaimed, "By the Eternal, boys, that must be the Bell Witch." Then, in disembodied female voice, told Jackson that they could proceed and that she would see them again later that evening. They were then able to proceed across the property, pull up the lane, and to the Bell home, where Jackson and John Bell had a long discussion about the Indians and other topics and stuff. While Jackson's entourage waited to see if the entity was going to
appear.
Yeah.
One of the men claimed to be a witch tamer. Now, I don't know. I've read books on witch hunts. I even have a copy of the Malleus Maleficorum, which is about witch hunting.
Mm-hmm.
A witch tamer, I don't know if they're talking about a witch hunter or someone that can cast out a witch. So it's got different meanings.
I'm jumping off topic again.
Go ahead.
Coming back to the book, once we get our studio completely finished, we need to get a bookshelf in here for all of our books.
Yep, we'll do that.
Because I know both of us have quite a bit of.
Oh, geez, we got so much information, and we've done this for so long. We've accumulated so much on the subjects and everything just to keep us informed when we go out doing investigations, what to look for, and everything else. It's crazy.
Yeah.
After several uneventful hours, he pulled out a shiny pistol and proclaimed that its silver bullet would kill any evil spirit it came in contact with. He went on to say that the reason nothing had happened to him was because whatever had been disturbing the bells was scared of this silver bullet.
Wait, it's kind of strange, because silver, from all the stuff we've done, really has no effect on spirit.
No, nothing.
No, I mean, and Silver Bullet, that goes back to the werewolf stuff, It's not.
It's even that. It's not even fictional because they've actually tested a real silver bullet in a gun.
Mm-hmm.
It has no flight trajectory at all. Even in a rifled barrel,
Right.
smooth barrel, in a smooth bore, like back in those days,
Right.
when the silver bullet first came into, it would fly everywhere. There was no straight trajectory for a silver bullet to. And then when they even tried it in a rifled barrel,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of you, I don't know, if you know what a rifle barrel is, you'll understand. But the people that don't, it's one that's got spirals cut into the barrel, which spins it like a football when it's thrown. It keeps it straight. Even then, it came out, and when it hit the target, like, say, ballistic gel, it just deformed on impact. There was hardly any penetration because silver is so soft. And for the silver bullet theory, it has to be pure silver. It can't be mixed with any other.
Right. And that's the thing is silver is not it's like gold. It's not a hard metal. So
yeah, it's just it's crap.
Yeah.
My theory anyway. But anyway, because of the silver bullet, it was scared. And like Merle was saying, you can't shoot air.
Exactly.
And that's what a spirit is. It's manifestation of
energy
and air around you. So it's like shooting the wind. You can't do it.
Immediately, the man screamed and began jerking his body in different positions. So he pissed something off.
Yeah.
Complained that he was being struck with pins and beaten severely. A strong, swift kick to the man's
posterior
to his ass.
Yeah.
from an
That's a good way to put it.
Sent him out the front door. I mean, we don't use a whole lot of cursing and stuff in in our cast. We may throw something in here and there, but it's not. That's not our thing. Is to.
No.
I
I do like to provoke when we go on.
Oh yeah.
I'm the provoker.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie. I do like to provoke when we go on our investigations, but I like it. But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of it. But
Yeah. So after being kicked, it sent him out the front door. Angry, the entity then spoke up and announced that there was yet another fraud in Jackson's party, and that he would be identified and tormented the following evening.
so that goes back to the witch tamer. Another fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now terrified, Jackson's men begged to leave the Bell farm. But hey, Jackson, on the other hand, insisted on staying so he could find out who this fraud was. The men eventually went outside to sleep in their tents, but continued begging Jackson to leave. What happened next is not clear, but Jackson and his entourage were spotted in nearby Springfield earlier the next morning, presumably en route to Nashville. And here's the thing about Adams, Tennessee, and Nashville. They're not very far apart.
Mm-mm. No, that's actually back then that was a couple of days ride.
Right. I mean, it may be an hour outside Nashville.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you. Give me 1 second. I can tell you.
I didn't happen to look that up, but
We'll just use walking distance. Let's see here.
yeah, because I don't think it gives you an option for horse.
Nah. I guess bicycle would be close to a horse as far as speed.
Yeah, you can go a little faster on a bicycle. Then
You could probably go a little faster with a horse and a bike.
well, that's if you had a horse not at a trotting
Well, you also don't know if they were going up and down
hills or
through the woods and
Right.
stuff like that. So
Yeah, you don't, because the roads aren't the same as they are now. You're not going to have interstates and stuff like that.
All right. If you would keep doing that while I'm doing this,
Okay.
I'll get back to this.
So over time, Betsy Bell, which was the oldest of the girls,
Yeah.
that's Elizabeth, right? Became interested in Joshua Gardner, a young man who lived not far from them. With the blessing of their parents, they decided to marry. Everyone was happy about the engagement. Well, almost everybody. The entity,
Now
for reasons unknown to this day, repeatedly told Betsy not to marry this Joshua Gardner.
Now that's Adamsville, right?
Adams.
Adams.
All right.
Adams, Tennessee.
Okay.
All right. What I found out is if you're actually walking that's a 12-hour walk. If you're taking a bike, say a horse, we'll just say horse, you're looking at probably a 4-hour ride.
From Adams to Nashville.
So it's not that bad. It's like a half a day.
Yeah.
Half a day's ride.
But it may be, it's probably more than that because, like I said, the roads are different than they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
The environment changed. The territory changed.
Right.
I swear I'm going to kill that fly. Like a fly on the wall. Let's see here. Betsy and Joshua's former school teacher, Richard Powell, had been noticeably interested in Betsy for a time and expressed interest in marrying her when she became older. By some accounts, Powell, who was even 11 years older than Betsy, was a student of the occult. Although it wasn't proved, he was secretly married to a woman in nearby Nashville, Esther Scott, during the time he spent at Red River, expressing his fondness for Betsy. According to older accounts, Powell politically expressed his disappointment with Betsy's engagement and wished her a long and prosperous marriage with Joshua Gardner.
That's still kind of weird, your teacher.
Well, back then, people got married at 16.
Right.
Back in those days. I mean, back in those days, if you weren't married by, say, 17 or 18, you were pretty much an old woman.
Yeah.
With
Spinster.
no prospects.
Yep. It says Betsy and Joshua could not go to the river, the field, or the cave. The cave's going to come into part a little bit later. To play without the entity taunting them. Their patients finally reached crisis mass on Easter Monday in 1821. Betsy met Joshua at the river and broke off their engagement. The disturbances decreased after Betsy ended the engagement, but the entity continued to express its dislike for John Bell and vowed relentlessly to kill him.
Kind of makes you wonder why it was targeting John himself.
Right.
There's got to be a link or some kind of connection between the entity and John. Yeah, it was attacking everybody else in the house, but it specifically targeted John. It said Bell had been experiencing episodes of twitching in the face and difficulty swallowing for almost a year, and the malady it seemed to grow worse with time. By the fall of 1820, his declining health had confined him to the house, where the entity commenced removing his shoes when he tried to walk and slap him in the face with experienced seizures. When he experienced seizures.
Man, that would suck. Be having a seizure and getting the crap kicked out of you.
It's like, that goes back to the old saying, getting kicked while you're down,
Yeah.
Her loud, shrill voice could be heard all over the farm, cursing and chastising old Jack Bell as she referred to him. All right, there's got to be a reason why she's targeting this guy. Yeah, he was the man of the house. But there's got to be an exact reason. And I don't think anybody's came to that conclusion yet.
Let's see. John Bell breathed his last breath on the morning of December 20th, 1820, after slipping into a coma the day before. Immediately after his death, the family found a small vial of an identified liquid in the cupboard. John Bell Jr. gave some of it to the cat, which died instantly. The entity then spoke up, exclaiming joyfully, "I gave old Jack a dose of that last night, which fixed him." John Jr. quickly threw the vial into the fireplace, where it burst into a bright, bluish flame and shot up the chimney.
John Bell's funeral was one of the largest ever held in Robinson County, Tennessee. As family and friends began leaving the graveyard, the entity laughed loudly and began singing a song about a bottle of brandy. It is said that her singing didn't stop until the very last person left the graveyard. The entity's presence was almost non-existent after John Bell's demise, as if its purpose had been fulfilled.
In April 1821, the entity visited John Bell's widow, Lucy, and told her that it would return for a visit in 7 years. The entity returned in 1828, as promised, so exactly 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Most of its visits centered around John Bell Jr., with whom the entity discussed such things as the origin of life, civilizations, Christianity, and a need for a mass spiritual reawakening.
Huh.
Of particular significance were its nearly accurate predictions of the Civil War and other events. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. The auntie said farewell after 3 weeks, promising to visit John Bell's most direct descendant in 107 years. The year would have been 1935, and the closest living descendant of John Bell at the time was Nashville physician Dr. Charles Bailey Bell. Dr. Bell himself wrote a book about the Bell Witch, published in 1934. No follow-up publishment. There was no follow-up was published, and John Bell died in 1945.
Dr. Bell.
Yeah, Dr. Bell. So what we need to find out is if the witch actually visited Doctor in 1935, because it doesn't say it did or didn't unless it's in that book.
Right. Maybe a book we need to add to the collection.
But at the same time, it said, let's see here. It says it would have been 1935, but he wrote the book, and then the book was published in 34. So
this was passed on for him to know.
Yeah.
All this information about it.
So that had been a year after the book was published. Is when she was supposed to come back and see him, but nothing was mentioned after that.
Right.
Whether it did or not, which is kind of weird. If you look at that, it said 107 years. That had been 1935, right?
Mm-hmm.
The book was published in 34, right?
Right.
And he died in 45. If he died in 1945, that's exactly 10 years after she said she'll come back and see him. So she said she'll come back in 7 years to see Lucy, right?
No.
The widow. It said 1821, the entity visited. It said it'd be back in 7 years. The entity returned in 1928, which was 10 years, right? Stayed for 3 weeks. So 7 and 3 is 10. If you're following the kind of weird math I'm going by. 7 and 3 is 10. She said she'll be back in 107 years, which had been 1935. He died in 1945. That's 10.
Yeah.
So it's a weird coincidence that 10 shows up twice.
Yeah, it is. You got the entity that tormented the Bell family and the Red River settlement almost 200 years ago is often blamed for all kinds of unexplainable manifestations that occur near the Old Bell Farm. The faint sounds of people talking and children playing can sometimes be heard in the area, and it's not uncommon to see candle lights dance through the dark fields late at night. Photography is especially difficult. Some pictures taken in the area show mists, orbs of light, and other phenomena, including human-like figures who were not present when the pictures were taken.
The cause of
that, going back to that,
mm-hmm.
the mist. Goes back to that.
Yeah, our first investigation.
Same issue.
Yep.
Well, our first investigation together.
Yep. Yeah, our very first investigation is mainstream.
Right.
Yep.
And having the mist show up in several photographs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that mist when, and our investigation that we're talking about was in Mississippi.
Right.
Nowhere even near this, and we, coming from that graveyard, taking those photos, we had that mist around us.
Right.
Everywhere else was clear. So yeah, that's
pretty interesting. And the orbs of light.
Yeah, we only captured, 2 orbs that night?
But that one orb right between two of our...
Well, you and one other person, yeah. That was unique.
It was kind of interesting. It just, the mist kind of made me go back to think about that.
I understand.
It says, the cause of the Bell's torment almost 200 years ago, as well as today's horrid, unexplained manifestation, remain a mystery. Numerous theories. There's no one theory that is universally agreed upon by Bell Witch enthusiasts and researchers, and there probably never will be. Different people have different standards of proof.
Yep.
Most do agree that there was something very wrong at this Red River settlement, and there may very well be something wrong there today. But like you were talking about, wondering what this connection was. Could it go back to that animal? Was the animal there for a reason? See, one of the theories is that this Bell Witch was a former mistress of John Bell.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking her name was Kate, something like that.
I believe so.
But the settlement was what they're calling it. The home is no longer there. It's been torn down.
Yeah, the land's still there. The house.
Land's still there.
The house isn't.
This part of our research didn't. It just mentioned the cave.
Right.
But the cave is still there on the property, and they call it the Bell Witch Cave. So apparently, you could still go to this cave and...
Yeah, they still have tours, and it's privately owned.
And you can actually, you can do the tours or whatever. But they say there's still a lot of stuff that goes around this cave.
Right. Which Merle and I have discussed and thrown it up in the air about doing an investigation here if we can get in touch with the right people.
Right. That's the thing is getting in touch with the right people.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to do something that is going to... We're not going to break in somewhere.
Yeah, we're not breaking any laws to do anything at all. We
respect the places we go.
Yeah. We respect the places and the people. And we, we're
it was like, several episodes ago when we did Athens jail.
Mm-hmm.
We were really respectful when we went in this place.
Yeah, we take.
You could tell a lot of people aren't.
Yeah, we take anywhere we go, we treat it as if it's our place. We make sure nothing gets damaged. We look at every aspect of how we rig something before we rig it.
Right.
So
If
there's
we
no damage or anything.
Yeah. If we use any kind of tape or anything like that,
Exactly.
we take it back with us. We don't leave
Nope. We clean up.
any trash.
Yeah, there's no footprints of us being there. And we tried to get the best information we can.
Now that place there probably was footprints because there was some dust and stuff on the ground.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna sweep the floor, you know.
Oh, I'm not either.
I'm not gonna bring a broom to.
I mean, there was
that's
electricity.
dust that could have, you know.
Yeah, there was electricity. We
there.
could have sucked that stuff up, but still,
Yeah.
you know, with a vacuum. But it's just, I didn't see any plugins in the walls for a vacuum. I know there was electricity.
Well,
The light switches.
we used electricity upstairs. Well, downstairs.
Yeah,
Upstairs there was no electricity.
that's right. Just light switches. There was wall sockets downstairs because we plugged our stuff in.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
But there were no lights upstairs either. Remember? We had to use flashlights when we went upstairs.
You're right.
We had lights right there in that one little, the one room, and then right there where we had our equipment set.
Yeah.
It's the only two places that had lights.
Yep. The rest of it was.
I mean, I've run off on more tangents today. But I mean, that's the Bell Witch for you. I mean, there's tons and tons of books out there. You know, if you want to read more into it, you know, go check out some of these books. And that Dr. Bell's book, I'd like to get that for collection if I could find it.
Yeah. I think we can find it on Amazon.
I mean,
what was it called? The Bell Witch?
It's just called Bell Witch.
Right. Let me look on Amazon real quick.
Published by Charles Bailey Bell. Or not published, but, you know, written by. This fly is... but... Yeah, I mean, there's... I've seen so many articles and stuff on this. I mean, it's a pretty big legend, especially getting documentation and stuff from, you know, Andrew Jackson, of all people, you know.
Andrew Jackson was a very honest person too.
Yeah.
So,
I think it would have been funny to see that guy get kicked out the door.
that would have been funny. The Bell Witch of Tennessee by Charles Bailey Bell.
Yep.
Yep, we can get it. It's on paperback.
Is that all I got is paperback?
Yeah, it's $24.99 with $4 shipping. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
We could do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. We may just write it down and get it when we get our bookshelf and stuff in here because I don't want to keep adding.
It's going to be loud. Death comes swift to those who fly swift.
There's been a fly that's been flying around the studio driving us insane.
And I missed him.
It's just one fly.
That was my kneecap, though. But, yeah, the Bell Witch. You know, some people. What was that one movie that came out? What was it? Haunting in Connecticut with Donald Sutherland.
I think so. Yeah. No.
Was that it, or was it a haunting?
See, that's what one of those was.
One of them is kind of based off of the Bell Witch. I think, if I'm right, it was the one with Donald Sutherland, where, and I hate to say it, but he was sneaking into his daughter's room.
Yeah, I can't remember on that one.
And I think that movie was based off the stories and everything from the Bell Witch.
Yeah, see, one of them had to do with that, and the other one was Ed and Lorraine Warren
Yeah, now that story.
That's what started the whole Conjuring
Yeah.
story.
There was another one that I've actually. We're going to do a podcast on demonologists and demonology. Possession. We'll do one on possession because there's a couple stories we need to talk about.
Okay.
But this, hey, awesome.
Ding.
As far as the Bell Witch goes, like Merle was saying, you could still go to the location. They have tours. You could, they'll show you where the house was. You can also do the tour of the cave, and that's something we're going to do one day.
Yeah.
And
they say don't take it lightly when you go in there because people are afraid when you go in there that it's going to latch onto you.
Yeah. Of course.
I mean, we go in these places all the time. I mean,
fear is the worst thing you can give something like this.
Exactly. And from what I can tell, we've never brought anything back with us.
No. There's going to be that one day, though, something might. But as long as we stay level-headed, we're going to be good.
Yeah, especially the way you like to provoke. You're going to piss something off.
I mean, I thought we were going to bring something back from Vicksburg.
Oh, yeah.
When we went down there and did the insane asylum.
Yeah.
Just doing that walk around, I thought we were going to bring something back because what was it, 6 weeks before we went down there?
Yeah.
And we realized it at the last moment. I know this is kind of getting off subject with this, but
hey, it's a paranormal podcast.
Yeah.
It's what we do.
We found out 6 weeks before we actually went down there was unfortunately a murder. And when we got down there, the place did have I guess you could say a vibe to it.
Ominous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got out of it okay, but that was the one place that we actually thought that something might come back. But
and that was the only place I've ever been where I was physically...
Yeah, you were drained out, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
Like my energy just dropped.
Yeah.
And just go walking up...
going up those steps. Yeah.
Make it halfway up, and I was like...
Hanging onto the wall. I remember that. And that's the first place I've ever been where I was actually on alert, like waiting for something to come out at me. And I'm never like that.
Yeah.
And when I heard that glass crack, like somebody was stepping on it on the second floor, right as we were getting up to that door, yeah. I was
right about that same time I got sick.
Yeah,
because I was behind you as you were fixing to get up there. And I physically had to go back downstairs into the fresh air. And my energy just jumped right back up.
Yep, I remember that because you said you were feeling a lot better once we got downstairs. And then the whole time I was waiting for something to come down those steps. Because if you remember, I kept looking back toward those steps.
Yeah.
That was the one time, man.
But then it's also interesting when we were leaving, when we got back out to the vehicle, we were taking pictures of the front of the building.
Yeah, we caught
that image. It looked like somebody leaning up against a post.
Yeah, but there was no post out there.
Right.
There was no post, but we took that picture of it looked like a lady in a dress.
Yeah.
And that's weird. So yeah. And talking about this mist again, let's go back to that. On our first investigation is Mainstream, when we did that cemetery, coming out, we kept getting that feeling like we were being watched and followed.
Like something was...
making sure we were leaving.
Right.
And me taking those photos, and it was the first time I ever taken photos like that, just taking it and swinging it behind me instead of turning around and snapping photos. Trying to catch what it was walking behind us.
Because it kept sounding like when we'd stop, it would stop.
Right, like it was ducking behind stuff. So if I turned around and stopped and turned around, they would jump behind a tree. So I was just swinging the camera back and forth. And when I swung it behind us, I'd click, click, And that's when I caught the photos of the mist and everything around us. And that was unique. And then when we got past the gate, there was no mist and everything was back to normal.
Right.
So, I mean, I took several shots of that. So, yeah. So.
And it wasn't a humid night either.
No.
So, I mean, there was no reason for the mist.
Nope. There was no moisture in the air. There was no humidity. Well, there was humidity, but it was standard Mississippi weather.
Right.
So it's not like it was chilly or anything like this. This was summer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that early in the morning where there would be mist. So, but yeah. I think in the next episode we should do, or a couple episodes in, should be the possession. We need to do one on that.
Okay.
I already know what our next episode we're gonna do.
All right. But I guess that's gonna be it for this episode.
Sounds good.
So we're gonna head on out of here.
Yep. And guys, we're coming to the end of this COVID-19, and we hope everybody stayed inside, did their social distancing, and is doing okay. And we do appreciate all the listeners, and also all of our comments and everything we've been getting.
Yeah, we're starting to get a little bit more feedback and stuff
Yep.
now.
And we do appreciate it, guys. We really do. Every little bit helps. So keep giving us those thumbs up. Keep listening to us. And I think Merle has something.
Yeah.
else.
If you could, if like you listen on Apple Podcast, go ahead and leave us a review there.
Yep.
Help kind of bump us up the ladder a little bit. Like you said, every little bit helps.
And we do appreciate every one of you guys listening. We do. We're here for you guys. We do this not only because we enjoy it, but we think you do too. That's the reason we bring you this information.
And that's all I got.
Didn't you want to send some shout outs?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do them now.
Okay.
Got a few shout outs. We got Watchers Paranormal.
Yep.
They liked us on Twitter and gave us a shout out on their podcast. You can catch it on YouTube. I'm not sure that's where I seen it, was on YouTube. You also got Ghost in the Night podcast. You got the Monroe Falls Paranormal Society at Monroe Falls, Ohio. And then Nightgeist. It's Night and then Geist, like Poltergeist.
Yep.
Nightgeist podcast. So go ahead and check all those guys out. And that's all I got for this episode.
Okay.
So I'm Merle.
I'm Larry.
We'll see you on the other side.